Wendy Napolitano. I'd like to thank my viewers for coming and continuing to watch my channels and my creations as the different projects come up, whether I'm doing, putting together a conference or I'm giving you guys light language, sharing with you some of the healing sessions that I've done, any of the collaboration, and then of course my interviews that come up too. I'm actually starting to do a new YouTube channeling channel called Channeled Illuminations, and that's currently in the works. I'm in the editing stages of having those prior channeled videos put together so that I can put them out and share them with you. So who I'm here with today is my lovely friend from Scotland, Mr. Bill MacNeil.
Yeah.
And so Bill and I met when we were at the Crystal Unification Conference back in 2019 in October. And he was one of the wonderful, just fantastic speakers at the conference. And I fell in love with him, and and we had this bond right away. And so we've stayed in touch here over the years, and we've talked about keeping up to date with his projects and what he's been up to and what he's been doing. And so I'd like to have him say hello, and then you'll just listen to our kind of fireside chat, if you will, minus the fire.
Minus the fire. Hi. Yeah, thanks for that, Wendy. And yeah, speakers is one thing, whether it's wonderful or not, I don't know. I just say what comes out, and what I'm guided to say, I guess, because the speaker itself, there's background, and then there's the real stuff that we get involved with on the Highland Mystic side, which you can probably see them behind me there. So yeah. Yeah, it was quite a gathering at the pyramids there, and yeah, that's another story of the adventures that happened there.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I'm glad that's behind you.
yeah, it was behind me, literally. Yes. So, but we survived that. It must be over 2 years now, Wendy. I think that's since we met.
It has been.
It was been quite a rough 2 years for everybody, and I think that when things like this are happening, it brings all sorts of other things that start to happen, that get triggered, that maybe you don't think are there, or you think are there, but they've never really manifested themselves quite like they have done in the last 2 years.
Right. Well, I know I have been going through my own personal healing and clearing. Past lives have been coming up to be cleared. I recently reconnected with a Mayan past life who, it was a very difficult, challenging, troublesome life. He was during the times of the conquistadors. They thought that they were coming, the conquistadors presented themselves as being, we want to learn from you, show us your ways. And then they came in acting as if they were friendly, and then they conquered the village and killed everybody, including him. And so, but that was me in one of my past lives. So I always like to talk to people about how past lives are with you all the time, and that you're not necessarily always knowing about them, but because of the work that we're doing, some of us become more in tune with them. And so for my own experience, I associate past lives with the hand. I like to use the hand as a reference, because the hand is still you. You've got each specific individual finger for the hand, but they're all still you. It's still the hand, it's all together. And so that's kind of how your past lives are. They're still in your auric field. They're still out here in the quantum. You still have access to them. And because a lot of the work that I do is in the quantum, as I'm becoming more and more aware of these different lifetimes and the different healing methodologies available to me, it's kind of like, okay, well, now that you've mastered this tool in your toolbox, we're going to give you another one. And so just in this last year, I've become aware of a volcanic priestess life. So I have access to volcanic energies. I've become aware of a fire dragon life. So I'm now in tune with fire dragon. And then, of course, working with crystal skulls, that's one of my early lives that one of my ancient lives that I have come in, and galactic, that's all like tied in together. And then this Mayan life, and it's given me jaguar healing energy. And so anyway, so in all that aside, if it's not enough, I've been working personally on developing my own channeling abilities. And so with this channeling, I've been working with a friend of mine, Susan Mulheran, and I think it's Mulheran, and I don't know, I ripped through it and I probably am twisting it around, but anyway, she and I have been working on channeling together, and one of these projects that's coming up is going to be channeling the unicorns. So what we're doing is channeling the Elemental Realm series. So anyway, so while I was reading through the Elemental Realm series and focusing specifically on unicorns, doing a little background research, something that had come up was that a lot of unicorn information comes from Scotland. So so my guide team was like, they threw your name back into my mind, and I was like, oh my God. And I know you have a poem about it. We're not going to talk about it here. This is just kind of preliminary. What I really want to do is talk about you, where you're at, and what's coming up. But that's just kind of a little bit of the background information of like where I'm at and how we got to this point and why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, no, well, the animal for Scotland is the unicorn, and you'll often see on the coat of arms, you'll see the unicorn of the United Kingdom, well, Scotland, and also in Highland Mystic coat of arms, you'll see on the website, and you'll see a unicorn there, which is very much part of where we live within these realms. Let's say, I was born on the banks of Lochness, if you like, on one of the rivers there, and flowing into Lochness, and the energies there are absolutely incredible, off the scale. And because on one side of Lochness you have which is part of the American continent. On the other side of Loch Ness, you have the European continent. And so it's really like two plates. And there's a rift right down the edge of Scotland, right down the Caledonian Canal, that this broke off from America many millions of years ago and came across the Atlantic, if you like. And it's where it bridged onto the European plate. And so Scotland and these two plates are like crystal on each side. They're basically sandstone and all these, and they are a huge amount of pressure still, and across Loch Ness, and it's 24 miles long, so it's quite a long loch. You can put all the water in all the lakes and the lochs in England and Scotland, and it still wouldn't fill Loch Ness. It has more water in it than all of those put together. So it's an incredible place. And I was brought up there, just as a bit of background, but I went into, let's say, the main, earn some money, get trained, and working on the technological side of really, it's turned out, of electronics, avionics, radar, and in the end, ultrasound. And they use crystals. Crystals are the basic for that. So without boring you too much on that, there is what we call a bridge over, and that's where I like to work. I like to work in the technology, and then the other side where you have all this wonderful work that people do with healing and therapy and using crystals for on that side. But there is a link. So I come a little bit different way than everybody else. I look at that link because I don't believe we have any past lives. I don't believe that there is any future or past, because I think it's all one.
It's all, yeah. And even though we call them, right, even though we call them past lives, because we are definitely on this linear timeline, they are all one, and they are all happening at the same time, for sure. And that's why we're able to tap back into the information, because it's not really tapped back, the information is happening concurrently. Which, I mean, but try to get your mind around that, right?
It's very difficult. We explore that a bit on the website, and I have been doing writings now for the past 10, 12 years nearly now. But it's been a accumulation, a build-up throughout my life. In the end, I left the technology world and everything to come back to Scotland and focus on meeting people that actually work in this area as well, and I met some great people and started visiting sites. I got this crystal skull. It's another story. Highland Mystic it's called. But there I learned that there is no time. So although we're speaking now and everything, we're only doing this because we're here in this realm, or these elements that surround us that have time. But if you go and when you don't have any time, then all lies.
Then all time exists.
So what we do is we call it re-remembering, and it's like we have all the knowledge of the universe within inside us. A grain of sand,
yes,
or salt, has all the knowledge of the universe. So what happened was I've done a lot of writing, and then I guess because I've done a lot of lecturing and stuff like that and other stuff. People and in general, and it's not a criticism, it's very hard to keep people interested when you're trying to talk about things that drift off and that. And sometimes I think, well, it's getting a little bit boring doing this or that. So what the messages I got, and when the Highland Mystic came, which is in 2012, was to do with, it started coming through. I'd visit some sites, and I'd get these. Well, channeling, is that the right word?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that.
And so these sites used to speak to me, or people that were at those sites that had been at their sites before, like places like up Skara Brae, up in the Orkneys, Ring of Brodgar, around Lochness, and some great sites. And they told me of the stone that stood there, of where Highland Mystic comes from. And in the poetry, it started to tell me about this. And I'd start to see things and feel things, and also some people that were there. And it was like a release for them. And I get woken at 4 a.m, and with just one word, a single word, and it would go around my head, and in there, I've got to get up. So I get up, make a cup of tea, as one does here in Scotland. Yes. And then so I just write the word down. And as I write the word down, more words start to come. And it's like that. I don't know where it's going. And it started telling these wonderful stories, some very sad, but also some very uplifting, and some very ones.
And some with some fun twists in the end, that's secretive until the very mystical end.
and some funny ones as well. I got one about, it's called Midgie Mad. Up here in Scotland, we have what we call the Midgies, and there's these little millions of tiny insects that like to eat you. You know, I'm to do this now to. And they're called midgies. But when they
call it no-see-ums in Wisconsin. Not that I'm in Wisconsin, but nearby, and been there. No-see-ums, midgies. All right.
They drive you mad, and Scotland's quite famous, especially around by rivers, early mornings and things like that. So, but there comes a poem through about these, which is quite funny, but quite true. But so it's not all about crystal skulls, the poems. In fact, very few of them are. There is one called the Lochness Run. I think I've done that. And that tells of the eye and how the eye was saved, because it's about a standing stone. And this standing stone that was around Lochness is actually still there, but you can't see it. And you can't see it for the reason, it's not because it's in a different realm, it's because it's on the ground. And where people came and took a lot of ancient things away from Lochness, and this standing stone was so big that they couldn't, they tried to cut it in half. So I didn't really, I didn't know. I'd heard from, I was taught by a couple of very dear lady friends who lost their husbands during the war, but they sort of took our family under the wing when I was very young. And they taught me about everything, the trees, the animals, they all had names.
Oh, wow.
Bruin and these were all, these weren't just, oh, that's a squirrel, that's, no, they all had names. The river had river spirits, the trees, the dryads that lives, the dryad in the tree, or a group of trees, the moss, everything that joins everything. And so I didn't know very much until much later, until I came back, that when they started talking to me again, and they would remind me of some of the things. I would remember what they said, and so I started writing it down. So this is how we got into the poetry, and I have hundreds and hundreds of poems, and we on the website.
And what I'm excited about is that you've been working. I mean, you've had them and you've shared them at different events, and you've certainly, are, known as a speaker and have been out and done your presentations. But what I love is that now you've been developing your website, and people can find you at highlandmystic.com. And that you're starting to share these, and you have an album that's out there that is to the public. It's open and available, so people can get an introduction. They get to know a little bit, and then you've also got your Patreon channel where now people can go and they can get these poems because you've got hundreds of them. And I imagine in another year or so, it'll be thousands of them.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do, and first of all, I had no, like I say, I worked in the corporate world and of electronics, and Philips, giant magnet. I worked at one of their managers. I worked on also coming over onto doing this, and this was not going to be. It was for me and my family. I used to read them the poems. It was fun.
Yeah.
But the pressure has got so much on me. They said you have to release them, and so it was to try and find the best way to release these poems. And the poems themselves, one or two, they're very great and everything, but it starts to build as you read them pictures. There's one called the Quicksilver Man.
Yeah.
It's about when early in the morning when you wake up and you don't know if you're still dreaming or not. I used to get up in the morning, you're half asleep, walking through.
Right. Where am I at?
Walk through the house, and you'd start to see things. I would catch a glimpse of something out one of the windows. When you look, it's not there.
Yes. That happens to me a lot.
Yeah. And so this is what they wake me up and they tell me, and they told me about this is the in-between place between dreaming and awake, and you can be in there. And what I always do now is when I'm in the state looking, it told me never look at a clock.
Right.
Never look at if somebody comes in and talks to you, you're there. I call it the crossover. It's in
right. It makes you come into your conscious awareness of this current avatar body. So yes.
And you're probably everybody's probably done it, sitting on the edge of the bed there, and you start to see these images and that inside here that are not, you're not awake, and it's not your dreams. In fact, you can go back to these images. So you're in this place where all these fantastic things can happen. You're quite safe. And so I started saying, right, as long as I don't look at the clock, time doesn't start until you see a clock or somebody opens a door, so I get up very early in the morning.
Right.
And then this poem is, because your sight is like your hearing. In fact, hearing is another, because I don't think there is any such thing as hearing. I think that belongs to our body.
To our heart. I feel like it's in our heart space, but yeah, I have some interesting things to talk about with hearing, but I'll get to that when you're done here.
Well, maybe this will add on to it, because I think there's only vibration. And it's only our ears that we hear a range, we interpret. Hearing is interpreting a vibration that's for you. And we have a hearing range, but we also have a sight range. There's things flashing by all the time that you cannot see, and photons and everything going straight through you. So you can't see them. So this means that there are things happening. There's thinking is believing, but there's a lot you cannot see. So the Quicksilver Man, and you're actually, when you look at somebody or something, it's actually not there. You are seeing what was there. So you have this. So the Quicksilver Man is those
like the hologram. It's almost like the hologram.
Yes, the ones you see out the corner of your eye, the ones that you're walking down the street and what was that? And it's nothing there when you look. So it's a little poem. I may read it later if we've got time to. And there's several of these poems that they link together. So getting back to my point is, in the greater of these hundreds of poems, they all form a labyrinth. and everybody goes in and reads poems. This is the idea that they tell me, different ones at different times, at different, and they're the ones for you. They're not the ones I've written for me. You will get something out of them, because I poems and I read them and I think, and then I think back of them.
Brings us back to the we're all connected. Oh, let me tell you about the labyrinth. So when I was in Atlanta, there's a couple things I want to touch on: the ears, the seeing things you can't see, and then the labyrinth. I had this vision of this labyrinth, and the labyrinth was 3 trees. So it was 2 trees on top, like it looked like a Christmas tree, but it also looked like the palm tree. Like when we were down in Florida, they look like these Christmas palm trees. So down each like branch, instead of it just being like a Christmas tree branch, is like these fronds that like would veer out this way and this way, on either side. And then it would be so conical shape, 2 trees on top, 1 tree on the bottom. And this labyrinth came up the main tree, and then it went out the side. So it was almost like an 8.5 by 11 photo. And then on the sides, outside of these palm trees, were also the labyrinths. And so, but you could go inside this tree, this main center tree on the bottom, and then you can go in and out on this side, and then down to the outside, and then back in through the second tree that's on top, and down through this way, and up through the trunk, and down through the other side, and then connects over to the in between them, and then connects over to the other tree on the top, and then the fronds this way, and then the fronds outside, and then it brings you outside like as if you were looking at like a white page. And so the outer edges of the page here and the outer edges of the page, they were all apart, but it was a labyrinth. And so I was like, I don't know why they're giving me like this image of a labyrinth, like, and why with the trees and the ins and the outs. And it was very intricate. And I was like, oh, I'll never be able to draw that. But it's in my mind. Like, I feel like I need to put it to paper. So maybe I'll make some wild attempt at it sometime. But so then I had that labyrinth. And so tying it with your labyrinth, I'm like, yes, like it's all connected. It's all interconnected. And then the seeing what you don't see, what I've recently experienced, and this has like been, I think it was like November, December, for not this year, but the past year, like last year. I had this experience. No, oh yeah. Maybe it was, I don't know. If it wasn't this last year, it was 2 years ago. Anyway, there's no time, right? It all feels like it's all now. That's right. So, but I was walking outside, and it was kind of a winter day. It was not snowing, but I was seeing all these like little sparkle dots of light. And they were everywhere. And then they have some face apps or whatever, like on a I don't know, when you're taking a picture of yourself on your phone, where it makes you look like it's like sparkling, like little white lights sparkling. So only these white lights weren't white; they were silver, like just beep beep beep, and they were like pinpoints, like the end of a needle, like pinpoints. But they were everywhere. And so the first time I was experiencing them, I was walking, and like I said, there was snow, and I thought, is it snowing? And I was like looking around because I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, is it across the street? And so I was looking, and I could see it. Well, what I've come to find out is that, and maybe it's just a term that they give me to call it, but it's hydrolace. And so it's like the plasmic that is, which is in front of you, that you can't see, feel, taste, or touch, but it's there. And when you take a deep breath, that's what you're breathing in. And so this is part of like the interconnectedness that we're all like part of this oneness. And then for the hearing, I had these dreams that have been happening with this, like where you're saying the silver man, where you're like not quite awake, not quite asleep. And then I'm hearing sounds in my ear, and I'm like, what am I hearing? So one time it was kind of like kind of that, and it made me jump. Like physically, I jumped in my body, I shook, and I was like, whoa, what was that? So then when I'm doing these, when I've been working with channeling, it's like, okay, so I had this experience. What was it? What am I feeling? What's happening? And so they said, I'm becoming more aware of my more expansive self, of who I am as a being, as a part of this oneness. And so what I was hearing was sonic boom. So it's almost like they're like within this avatar body, they're allowing me to like understand and connect in with these multidimensional selves of myself and others, that I'm becoming aware of this connectedness. So I heard the sonic boom in one morning, and then a morning prior to that, I was hearing almost like you would think of a xylophone, like a child's xylophone, like do 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 do, like going up the keys. but it sounded like a xylophone. And it kind of reminded me of like an app game where it was like do 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 do. So it was fast, but it was like that kind of a sound. So it's like, it just makes you, it makes you wonder and amazement. And I try to document and write some of this stuff and journal it. And I guess someday when I have more time available to me and I'm less 3D in my regular day-to-day job, I'll start working on that.
Old like me. No,
yes.
Yes. So you're touching on something there, because a labyrinth, and a lot of people, this is where some people get, a labyrinth is different from a maze. A labyrinth has a beginning and an end. Yes. A maze, you can go off in different. A labyrinth, you can only go one way and you will get to the end. So you can go through. But then if we take, okay, let's take that labyrinth, because it's not 2D, it's not even 3D, because there are other layers around this. Now we're in this part of the labyrinth. Now we can go many different ways. And if we get back to when I say remembering about how all the universe, everything is out there, in this form, in our state, in our understanding of where we are, we cannot possibly comprehend everything that there is ever out there that can be comprehended, the infinite, the infinite. And so, because we're in this stage, in this body, but we're here for a reason. But this is why, like yourself, Wendy, and myself, and your friends, my friends, and that, we all have our special things to do. And this is where the labyrinth of the poetry and the stories, there's plenty of stories coming, that you pick out your way through that you see things in there that I'll never see. And you will be remembered of things that I will never, until I get back to the state where we're all one. Because I think where we are now, where we came from, is where we go back to. Yeah. And that came from back to is a bit not really true, but we have to put it in a form that we will understand. Otherwise, start saying, "Oh, this guy's crazy." Right.
Which is why when I talk about past lives, because we've got this linear idea, but the reality of is this circle, this infinite circle where all things are existing within the circle. And I actually had this, I was doing a meditation, and during this meditation, I got the message, because I was working through what I would call my own personal limiting beliefs of what I was taught from a young child. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And, those certain structures that are surrounding us that we've like plugged into ourselves in this particular body, where we say, oh, I must be this way, or I must be this way, I must be this way, or this is the way things are done. But then as I'm having this like more of the healing experience and the ability, because the healing is infinite. And so while I was working through what I would call limiting beliefs, and I'm like, oh, I just realized that's a limiting belief. And so I was kind of like erasing it. Like if you go to a whiteboard and erase it out and say, okay, I'm not limited by that anymore. Erase, erase, erase. That's no longer stopping me. I can go above and beyond that. And so, and I guess back in the corporate world, they would call that, oh, you've reached the ceiling, right? You can't get past it. You can't get past it. Well, you can. The ceiling doesn't exist. So, but anyway, so I was hitting like on different things within my life, and I was, working on clearing and working on like my mindset and having it be broadened and expanded. So anyway, I during this meditation, I got this message that we are one, and if you are me and I am you, how are you limited if I'm unlimited? And so it struck me in such a point in my heart to the oneness that we're all connected in that manner, that I woke up from it like just crying and tearful. And I was like, why am I crying? Kind of one of those moments. But it was that expansiveness. And I know you were talking to me once, we were working together, and you said, I hit that expansiveness where I knew everything, where I knew it. And I've been there once before, and I don't know, maybe you've been there many times since, but you were saying how you've been there once before and you experienced it, and you were kind of like, wow. And that was my wow moment too. It was like, wow, not only are we interconnected with this human because the source of has many creations and many times and many places and many dimensions and many planes and many planets and universes. And because of this unlimited expansive being that we are all a part of, but yet we're still wanting to have our individual experiences during the expansiveness of all that is.
Yeah,
So,
it's the well, it's not, in the end, it's not really complicated. And I'd say to everybody and anybody, you have the same inside you. You can look at you, like you said, you put all these other parameters. We're brought up with parameters. We're pushed here, we're pushed there,
yeah.
whether it be from parents, from school, you can do that, right? So
University, right? University, news, you know, the TV, which I've opted out of.
We then I see an evolution. I see then people coming out of that, but again, they seem to set their own parameters. Again, they put their own ceiling because they're thinking outside the box, but they're not thinking outside the cave. And that's where we're still in this cave. That's the way I look at it. So you have to get outside the cave to see the stars, what is really there. And truth is only what you make truth, what people understand as truth yourself. You can take somebody else's truth. My truth may not be the same as your truth or this truth, but there is only one, let's say, a oneness. It's hard to say. Somebody once said to me, you can never explain what it is. You can't write it down. You can't show, you can't draw, you can't hear what it is. It just is.
It just is.
Gnosis, if you like, gnosis. Whereas you just know that you get to a stage where you just know what it is.
Right.
You don't even have to try to explain it because you don't need to, because you know, you feel it in every inch fiber of your body. And you can also feel when you're moving along and you're starting to build, you can feel it out there. Maybe you haven't quite reached it, but you know it's there. And that's the exciting thing. And we're all like that. I'm not there. I'll never be there, because you can never be there, but you can go on this journey to be there, and you can get this excitement. You can feel it. You can feel this energy inside you growing. As you know, you're taking the right step, but that's the right step for you. It's not my step. I can't tell you this is what you must do, or that's, once you start doing that, and that's not what.
Right, exactly. You're saying like exactly what I'm always telling people. I'm like, okay, this may or may not be your beliefs, but from my mind expansion and where what I have discovered within my own healing methodologies, reading, they've got me, I say I might call my guide team, my light team, which is probably, you know, we're all together anyway, right? So, but you know, for how my understanding of this particular universe with this particular body is that we come in, you've got your guardian angel, you've got your team of, you know, your guide team, the ascended masters that you have access to. Now you have access to everything, but within the smaller realm of here we are in this time and place and now, there's, you know, maybe you've got 30 guides and maybe you've got 5 guides. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe you only got one, but whatever it is, you know, that this particular body comes in and you've got your oversoul. And so based off of what I know, the oversoul is like connected to everything and everyone in the whole universe. And so it just kind of like, it's almost like a reverse pyramid, if you will. The bigger stuff is all out here and it comes down to right here into here and now. But yet here you are within your own body, carrying like your own universe within your own body because of your own cellular structure and your own organs within this particular being. So I don't know, it's way beyond my understanding. I only have little glimpses into it. I have thoughts of insight, like you said, a knowing that sometimes there's an understanding with my claircognizance. That tends to be my highest gift. So I'll know things before I see things, feel things, hear things. But then my clairsensing, that's my clairsentience is definitely my next highest, you know, out of the broadening expansiveness of what I'm experiencing this here and now.
When I start working in workshops, is the wrong word, when everything is out there, and I mean that everything is out there. I mean physically is out there. You step outside or step in here, it's here. Everything that you need to know, can know, will know. It's because you can't see it, but it's here. Even now, the scientists are talking, there's no such thing as empty space. There's things
Yeah.
going through, even people like Tesla.
Yeah, the in-between. It's the in-between of here and here, that there is something. It's not just nothing, it's something. Yeah.
These people, there was a lot of people working, if you notice, there's a lot of people that were working on new inventions that were coming through, but a lot of them working at the same time. Before all the internet and all that, they weren't connected. But so I believe that everything we build is based on what we are in the ethereal world, in the different world. We build things, and I believe like upgrades, computers and things.
Oh yes, me too.
There's different levels. I think we have different levels that we get, and I believe it's all out there, all in here. You know what? There's a little bit on there I say, and I think it's coming through us all the time. I put it down to 3 types. There's 3 types. There's the first type that comes and goes through you, and it's not for you. It's not for you psychic. There's a second type that comes in, and it's like crystal energy, crystals, whether they be like an orb or whether it be a skull or whatever. Crystals and the technology or the they straighten things out. They interpret things, if you like, into a form that if you're working with crystal, they take on your energy and they can translate it. And when I say that is, there's other types of energy that comes for you.
Right, and different crystals may speak to you differently. You know, whether you're like, you know, whether it's a heart shape or a star shape or you know, a dragon shape. So it's whatever is speaking to your heart at that time, whatever you need for that moment, for this existence, to, you know, whether it's supporting you or
And the other thing is, there is energy that comes through you that stays within you, but you're not ready for it yet.
Right.
But it stays there and it's waiting for you, because there's also you can tell the story about when the Native American, on seeing the first ships, because they'd never ever seen anything like that before, and we are the same, we can get into
right,
but they couldn't see it, they couldn't see them because their mind or what they know had never ever seen that, and it could not compute, so they didn't see. It took a shaman to see it and then tell them, then they could see them. And it's the same with ourselves. We don't often, we can feel things, and maybe we feel the edge, but it gets stored inside you. So you've got this constant energy. And I was talking to a writer, another writer, and I said, well, she got up really early in the morning. And I said, well, why do you get up? And she go out and sit outside in there. And I'm an early riser. Says, why is it why do we go out? She says, well, that's where all the best energies, all the nobody's been there to take them. So I go out and get mine first. So this was, and if you think about writers as well, where do all the stories come from? Where what is imagination? You know, so and the same with, you know, outside your body experience. Let's say if you're talking about imaginations and things as well, sometimes you feel like you're outside, you're not in. I don't know if you know a famous Formula One racing here in Europe, but he was South America. He came from Brazil. Ayrton Senna. I don't know if you know. Really, he was out to this world. Fantastic. And these people have to make these decisions and drive faster. And these corners. In fact, today was the final race in the calendar, and the Dutch guy won.
Oh wow!
So it so happens today. But I got a book for my birthday years ago, and it was a famous commentator here. He passed on. His name was Murray Walker, and he was talking to Ayrton Senna, doing an interview type of thing, and that. And he said, this is the thing that he told me, he said, I could not believe. He said that when he got to that level of where he was in the zone, they call it in the zone, he said, I wasn't in the car. He said, I was not in the car. And Murray Walker's go, whoa. Wait a minute. He says, no.
Where were you, right?
He said, I'm outside the car. I'm looking at me from outside. And that energy is channeled ahead of him to drive that course at such a speed that he was doing. And I've heard this before from other, and when I do the channeling and when I do a presentation, if I'm talking about general things about this, or I talk about what crystal, how they're made and what they do and how they physically react to your touch, which is physics. But when I get into doing the poetry, and when I read the poetry as Highland Mystic, I'm not there. It's this that comes in.
Oh yeah.
And I feel it. I feel that, and sometimes.
And I've experienced it. I mean, I experienced it at the conference at the pyramid, where you were reading a story about, and I think it was about the standing stone, that one, and you were talking about how he will like send you images, and even though I tend not to like get. I used to not, it's changed since then, but I tend not to, like when I go in meditation, get like picture images back then, a couple of years ago. Now that's changed. But anyhow, but when you were reading that story, the images of the soldiers and the path and the forest and, the castle beyond, all of that imagery was so intense. And just the way the words, how, like, it's almost like when you were, even though you had channeled the information and were reading it, it's almost like when it reads, like it like seeps into your cellular structure and like comes into your physical being, and you're there, you are transported there into that moment. And it was so, I mean, I felt the emotion of it, and it still stays with me. So if there's anything else, I definitely encourage people to get involved and to listen to your works and to read your stories, because there definitely is so much information that's being brought forward that it's not just like, oh, this is a great story to read, or oh, what a nice poem, or
something takes over. It's the same like when I'm channeling, when it's coming through, it doesn't come through like it starts when you walk in the forest and you go through this, that, and the other all the way. No, completely. These words come in, and they're all little phrases, and it's like a mystic jigsaw, if you like.
Yeah.
The pieces you put in, and you see the ones that go together, and then you see the ones where the blanks are, and then you look at the shape, the feeling of that, and that fits in. Not because I can see the image or the word, but the feeling of it, and then the word comes as I put it in. And so you start to build this, and it's the emotion that you feel, the feeling, and you feel what they feel. We are built to vibrate at an energy on different parts of it. And as we take in and we feel other people's energy, other people's vibration, we feel the earth, the trees, everything has this, and they interact because they are also part of the oneness. It's not just us, or it's just for us. I'm going to do you one, and this is one I haven't, that I didn't do, and I haven't released yet, but it will be. And this is how everything is not as you think it is, and you have these preset images of things, of people, or whatever, that you're, and it'll take you through that. And so I'll just read it, and then so it's to do that. And it was written at Halloween. It was written at Halloween. I'll just give it my best shot here. It's called The Cauldron. I came upon a place to sit, where a cauldron sat on a giant fire pit. Flames licked high, hugged its bowl. Swirling round inside, there was my soul. Around it sat the witches 3, all turned their hats and looked at me. The first one sighed and looked away. The other 2, laughing, started to sway. You have come here to our wooded den, far away from your world of men. For what reason do you dare to call we who know from ways one and all? With that came a bellowing smoke from out the pit, to cough and choke. Dread and awe had seized the air. Roaring laughter, like the devil may care. That's all there was for a second or two. Then a spark was heard and a flame broke through, so small at first and was hard to see, but there it was, right in front of me. Not from the fire pit did it rise, was not from the cauldron deep inside. The pot it swirled round just like before, this time burning light, burning bright. There was my soul. It floated high above our heads, shining down as bright light it shed upon us all in our wooded glade. Between the trees, a light was saved. The three now turning to look again, all smiling held hands, me in their chain. Everything not first as it seems. You came to us from your darkest dreams. You've seen only what you wanted to see, darkness surrounding you desperately. We removed your soul away to clear. You floated long, long way from here. You've seen all with your spirit free, spark back to life as you now can see. Rose from the pit to join our chain, hand in hand to return again. Hold on tight to what you have found on these journeys that you surround. Our hands hold you now and always, in our arms held tight, going through the maze. Remember this meeting, wandering down life's track, your three guardian angels in pointy witches' hats. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
I love that.
That was one that came to me through at Halloween, and there's a little it's like a restaurant pub up near Lochness, near Inverness, and it's called the Three Witches. So, and that's one that came through. So not all is what it seems, and so there's a few that come through like that, and you just have to piece them together. Yeah. And also when you're going through, when you think all is lost and these people are here too, then all of a sudden you find that they're the ones that give you, the hand up. They hold out that, and it's to help you, So sometimes they hold the hands out and you think they're gonna strike you, but this is so it was a different way of
right. You're thinking it's going to be like this versus like this.
Yes.
So that's very good. And that's what I've come to, to experience from, our conversations over the last couple of years. And, we've stayed in touch and we've had chats, here and there. And so it's always been enjoyable. But what I'm really looking forward to is having you join us for, this upcoming event that we're going to be doing where we're channeling the unicorns. And so when I typically what ends up happening is when I channel, just like you said, the information is there, it comes through and it's in the allowing. I tend to do more collectives. Oh yes, you're Black Unicorn. And so that's exactly where my mind went to when I was thinking I need to reach out to you and check your availability.
So we have different things to with the poems and for the Black Unicorn. Then I had these were made for me by someone who thought this great, and we can certainly channel. And again, that's another. It's some of these they just take you away somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're out there, and people get different like I say, different feelings and different things, but in the end it's got to be a bit of exciting. I think it reminds me about, because a lot of legends and stories have been handed down, well, in America as well, around the campfire, the fireside, and the stories used to come out before television and radio and all this, people
there were the storytellers.
Yes, and I went to Marrakesh years ago, and it's a little bit changed now, but in the square there, they had a huge square, And at night you'd go down and there'd be all these little storytellers, snake charmers, all these people milling around this square at night. And they had their, and they were in these little circles, and they didn't all have fires, but they had like these tilly lamps used to pump up, and they'd put them there, and then and the shadows as they cast, you could see the shapes if they're doing snakes or dragons or, you know, all these things.
Like shadow puppets.
and you entered into their domain. And that's I hope with the poems that because there's no pictures as such on there are some images that I've taken around in Lochness and different places.
The images are here, they're in your head, and they're being communicated often telepathically, you know, third eye to third eye, as your words are hitting, you know, because it's all sound frequency, right? Just like we were saying, it's all frequency, whether it's sound, light, whatever frequency. And so as your words and how they're eloquently expressed, and the, you know, whether it's dramatic or slower or spoken more quickly, you know, those different aspects of how you present your story, that's how you receive it too. And so that it's like this exchange that happens back and forth with the anticipation and the waiting and the listening to, oh, what's happening next, and the imagery that your mind is creating. So yeah, that's a lot. And then if it's emotional, your heart gets involved. So
and you are the best place to take the images. And I don't know if you remember that song called Video Killed the Radio Star. You know, video killed the radio star. This is years ago. They thought with all the videos coming out and YouTube and all that, that sound, you know, radio would be finished. But in fact, radio has got stronger. And you know, I often listen to the radio at night, and whether it's stories or whether it's, but you get into this world, you're listening and you're more aware, but then you start to build images, and I love the medium, you know, going back to the olden days, as my daughters call it, back in the 50s, where my father used to get up early in the morning as well to go out to work. He worked in the timber, and he used to have an old radio set. You had to tune in, and it had a little glowing light where the little cursor went along to select the channel, you know, and you had to, this is the BBC. So you get this, and you go into this world, and one of the worlds, and you guys won't know it, but it's every day the BBC comes out with a shipping forecast, and it's for people going out, because we're an island, all the fishermen really. And it will tell you the forecast going around all the different days, Bay of this, that, and the other, and all these names. I went into this. I used to listen, because he used to listen. I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. It comes out, so it can tell you gale force, and it'll tell you. They probably have something similar on the coast in America. And they're doing it in this monotone voice as they can, so to be very clear. Right. And I tune in the morning. Sounds a bit sad. I still tune in and listen to
I want to hear it.
To the not every day, but every now and then.
Soothing and has a familiarity.
There's a poem there, you know, places like Rock Hall and the Bay of Biscay, gale force 9, winds increasing, force 10, you know, and it goes. It's just you know, it's things like that on the radio that really make me think in a different way, I guess. And so
it's the imagery and your senses of, you're just driving on this road, getting to where you need to go to. Most of it's just a 2-lane highway, and sometimes it's, you know, 2 lanes this way and 2 lanes that, so a 4-lane road, but with the divider in between them. But it's, you know, it's the monotony of it, and then you're transported during you know, during the story time, if you will. So so I do relate to that a lot, which is probably why I just love your work.
There used to be every week, I think, I'm not sure if it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and they used to have this program. It was called Letter from America, and I can't remember the name of and it was somebody from the UK, an English guy who was living in America. He was a journalist, and so he'd do all these little the stories. Now it's all different communication, but this is way back then. Jonathan Cook, I forget his name, but he used to do this Letter from America, and he used to tell all the quirky things, but also some of the serious stories as well. But one of the things he used to do is put on this storyteller, Garrison Killier, is it? And he used to do Lake Woebegone Days. And this was stories about him growing up and his youth in America and all the different things, the quirky people, and it's just a gentle story, but you were right there with him. And it wouldn't be, you know, it wasn't all about wars and battles and fighting this and that and cowboys and Indians, whatever they called it.
Right.
It was about just normal everyday people. And I remember one of them about, and it was like a fishing trip. They were going fishing, and how it's this man and his son and some of the, and it was so gentle but so funny, you know. It was so that, and he just read it out in his voice, Garrison Keillor. I've still got it's on.
Well, I mean, it's like in America listening to Paul Harvey. You know, you'd listen to him and he'd have his news, and then he'd like always have like some little, you know, story that he'd have, and then he'd end it with, and that's the rest of the story. You know what I mean? And so, and then he'd end it off, and and then he'd say, "This is Paul Harvey signing off. Good day." But I mean, I could, just like you said, I could still kind of hear him in my head.
There was another one Garrison Keillor done, and it was to do with the duck. It was a duck hunting party. And it's just so, once you start the giggling, you know, and he just keep, but it's that deadpan boy. He never gets excited, but he just keeps you going, you know. And it's just such a, it's the old storytelling, and you can take, you know, things like I'm sitting one morning, and I've got a black cat who, it's another story, but she was a wild cat. She came and joined us, and been with us now 12 years or something. And we live in this farmhouse, and we're out in the country. And we were sitting in the morning, and we have like a big conservatory out one side looking down the garden. And it was about 5 o'clock. It was summer. So it was, as I walked in, and there's all glass around looking down, in the middle of the garden, about 10 feet away from me, as I came through from the glass, there's these two magnificent deer standing there, long legs, and they're jumping around, and I've got this little water fountain, and they're going around this, and then they see me and they froze, and then they shot around the side of the house. And I thought, right, okay. So I shot in, the cat's running after me, said, what, you know, nosy cat. And I've got patio doors. I thought, I'll go out, maybe I'll see them run out the other end of the garden, you see. And so I go out and looked, I must have missed them, because they're pretty swift. But as I've done that, that's sitting next to me. The next thing, they both come bounding by. They hadn't come through. And they're only like this away from me, and they're magnificent, you know. And we've got this great big eucalyptus tree in the middle of the garden. And they ran one each side of that. And I thought, that's them out the bottom gate, they're gone. But they didn't. They stopped. And they stopped at the tree, each end. And then they went round the tree. And then there's another part of the garden that goes with. They started running up and down there, the two of them, and round the tree and then back. And me and the cat sitting watching, not saying a word. And they sort of came together by the tree, and then they hadn't big antlers, they're only small, but they come and then they touch heads like that, jump up, and away they go. And they've done this for about 5 minutes. And I was just sitting there, and it was like they're putting on a show for you, you know, and it's something that I'll never forget. So it's a bit later that this poem came, and it was about them and about this, how they're dancing, and it's just that energy that was there in front.
That energy stayed with you because it was very memorable, and it and
something like that is quite miraculous.
Right, especially how they were like jumping around and running around the fountain, and, you know, up and down the street. Yeah, that's
why
really
should
cool.
They stop there and do that? It was like they've done it for us.
When they like bumped heads, that's like, it's not, because I thought for a minute you were going to say they were like two males and they were like they kind of had this bashing of antlers, but
it was so.
But it was gentle, and hey,
so
they were being playful.
I named them Grace and Poise. So I've never seen them again. Only in the fields I can see, but they're, you know, you think, oh, this is no, it's not an everyday occurrence, and you know, but there's something like that you really, once you start tuning in, nature starts tuning into you,
Right.
These things start, the more you say thank you, and the more, and I done this poem, it's like they poured this energy in me, through me and the cat. And this poem came forth, and it was also to pay tribute, to say thanks about what they did that morning. It was such an uplifting experience, and you could just feel that connection, you know. Other things like, well, I won't go into, but a magpie, I don't know, you know, the black and white birds in the crow family. And I had one of them dance for me one morning. It danced.
Fun.
I never knew a
But there's
I
no
never knew a
wings
magpie.
and just kind of like going in little circles and stuff.
Yeah, and I wrote a poem for that to say thank you, and you know, I posted it to the magpie, you know, and because they take things, don't they? And that, and
oh yeah,
so
they take and they want to bring them in their nest.
It didn't take the poem. I'd like to say, oh yes, it came and got the poem, but no, it didn't. But so I done. But it was such, and how, and it was. I'm sure magpies dancing. Usually they're very shy birds because they off they go as soon as they see you, you know. And it's such a beautiful bird. Sometimes we walk.
The feather is very like, it's almost got like a little purplish tinge to it. It's not just like a black feather with the magpie. Yeah, it's got a very like a rainbow opalescent kind of on the dark wing, on the feathers, whatever.
When they turn and when they take flight, and then when they're coming into land, or they put out like that. It's all those, you start watching them, and that's when you start to understand, you know, what a tragedy where we are now with what's happening in nature and things. Right. But once you start, the poem get to help with that.
Don't you think that's why we're like called so much to go, and like when we're really like, okay, you need to ground. We talk about grounding a lot. That when you really feel that, like you're like, like I'm like, it's like I feel icky, or I've had a long day, it's stressful. What do you want to do? You want to go outside. You want to go for a walk. You want to, if there's a forest nearby, you want to like be by the forest. And whether it's a cold day and snowy or wet and rainy, you just want to be in the out of doors, even if it's just for a short period of time if the weather is inclement. But if it's a beautiful day, you want to be outside. That's the thing that like brings your life joy and connection, and you know, being able to appreciate all the different things. And we had a windstorm here the other day, and just really seeing the trees really just swaying in the wind, and thinking, oh, I mean, you're maybe you're stationary, but you still have that mobility. You still have that, like that there's enough flex in the branches that you're getting to express yourself in this moment. So I don't know, that kind of stuff was popping around in my head while I was watching the trees, you know, floating around in the wind the other day.
And that's what it's all about. And also, if I get that, I'll say it out loud. I say thank you for that, because it just, so you feel better and you feel connected. And the more you do that, the more you notice things. And I hope these poems, maybe not everybody can get out their cities and things like that. I hope these poems will help with that, because it'll transport you, and also it'll allow you to acknowledge these things and feel it. That's what my hope is. It's and it's for people to enjoy that and that experience. As a note to that, this huge eucalyptus tree, which has been here 30 odd years or whatever, it blew down last week. The whole thing got blown down in the storm. So it'll never ever happen again. That moment with the dancing around that tree, the tree was blown over in that big storms that we came through Scotland about a week or so ago. So that it's gone forever. It'll never happen again. But you don't know at that time. So the moment, take the moment, do it at the moment. Oh, I'll do that. I'll give thanks and I'll do it now. And then you start to see other people around you. And I do a workshop on channeling poetry and mystic. That's what you want to call it. And if you can go to a place, visit that, but you may not get anything there. But then maybe a night or two later, a week, some of the poems, it's been like a year or so later that I get this knocking on the door and saying up, and I'm writing about, I can see this place where I've been, you know, it can be up one of the stone circles, and I write it. So it's not all at once. It doesn't just come like that. Some
Right.
do.
It's not like you sit down and you do the intention to write and it just comes out of your fingers. Sometimes it's, you just have to be in the experience of it, absorb it, be thankful for it, be
Yeah.
appreciative, notice it, and then feel it here. And then when you go back and you have pen to paper, when you've got a quiet moment, it might, like you said, like the word repeating in your head. That happens to me a lot when I wake up in the morning. I've got like a song that's playing and I'm like, all right, who's giving me this song? And why do I need to hear this song again and again for 5 days?
And that's true. And these words that you're right, I use an app, well, you know, Evernote. I use that.
Yes, Evernote.
I was putting in, there are other apps I'm sure available that do this, and maybe some better ones, but I've got mine all in there now. And so there's a couple, like I say, there's over 2,000. And so just try it.
Yeah.
It may go anywhere, but the more times you do it, then you start to get a feel. You may go a different way. It may not be poetry. It may be songs, or it may be just writing out.
Right.
But it will develop. And try it. That's what I say to him. Look, here's what.
That's so funny. When I was younger, when my kids were younger, and it was after my father-in-law had passed, but I had been given an ornament where it was a snowman, and then it was his face in the snowman, you know, so one of those kinds of ornaments. And of course, with Christmas being the season right now. So when I got that, I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. But then there was some kind of humor about it with him like being a snowman. And so I ended up like writing and like singing this little song to my kids. And my daughter's like, all right, Mom, just keep up with your crazy, silly songs. If you're enjoying that, then you go ahead and do that. But it was like, you know, it was like, Papa is a snowman on my tree. Sometimes he comes and visits me, you know, I mean, so I don't know. I've got it written down in a journal somewhere, and I could hear this tune popping around my head with the words as I wrote it down. And I was like, this is kind of funny. It's like, it's fun, it's playful, but it's still like it brought good memories of him because it was his face and his image, right? So,
yeah, see, look how you're smiling now. You've got those memories. This is something that you've done, and you recall it, and then all of a sudden you're recalling your father and things like, and it's like, wow, isn't that something? And you probably never thought at the time that years later, or what?
That years later it was going to bring that joy back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you can see it, you can feel it, and that's why I encourage people to try it. And we get in, we do a few exercises and things.
I'm going to start using Evernote again and start documenting more, like when I've got these thoughts and ideas running around, because I do definitely think there's something to that, and it definitely brings something back up. And then there's these other times where, think about like when you get together with family and friends and you're like, oh, remember that one time? And then you're reminiscing. Why don't we go back and reminisce? It's because we've already been there and experienced it. And when we're reminiscing, you're drawn right back to it. And you're laughing about the things that you were laughing about, and you're giggling about the things, and it brings you back into that youthful moment, because a lot of times it's, you know, it's like good friends that you may have been with early school with or whatever. And so those moments and those experiences that you've had, they were enjoyable and fun. So you always start there, and then you're already in your joy. And then once you're in your joy, then whatever else you experience going forward, you're just going to continue to bring that joy forward. So yeah, it's
if you do it with, if you do it with poetry, Wendy, what it does do, because I like I say, I write down the stories and everything. But what I found with poetry, because when you can see and feel the story or the images in your head, what you're trying to get, what's trying to get out through you. So, but when you're doing it, what it does do, it makes you slow down and put into the line so that when you read it, you get that image, and then you have to make it rhyme. So you're thinking of all the words and that, and as you're doing that, you're jumbling all the words up, and then they start to form, and then you get this rhyming going through.
The sing song. It's the sing song about it.
Yes, exactly. And you get this rhythm, this vibration going, that all of a sudden is bringing it through you out, and people start to get in because they're feeling that same vibration, and that's what's, you know, I started reading it just because. And it put me in these and things that were coming to me that were difficult to understand, that went round. I never thought I'd ever publish them or show them to anybody.
Yeah.
But when COVID was coming out raging, and I got this poem about the lady with the lamp, with the light that came.
Yeah.
and I read it to a couple of people that had suffered bereavement, and they were just, it was, they asked if I could send it to them, and because they had he had some friends whose father was in hospital, and actually he passed away, unfortunately. I didn't know them, but they came back and they wrote me a lovely email saying that they played it to him. They had it played for him because they couldn't go in.
Right.
And they played it for themselves, and they played it all the time through that period. And he said it gave them such comfort, because it's one of hope, even if you're in this dark place. And so it takes you through this journey, talking as the person.
Right.
For him. And they said, yeah, it's not a miracle, sort of get over it all right now, but they said it helped so much. And that was the feeling I got when I was writing it, that this was the beginning of something for that person, not the end of something.
Right. Right.
This, and then there were, and it was that sort of, it took a life of its own. And so there are some poems with that. There's some poems for healing, about self-healing, and so that you connect with your inner self, because a lot of the time we're out there doing all these things, but we never take time for ourselves, our own self. We can't.
And you know, I think the other good thing too is, you know, they're going to see the titles of the poem and they're going to be drawn to what they need in that moment. Then they're, you know, and where they're at and what they're going through. And I mean, it's almost like when you go through and you're like thinking, oh, what's the next book I want to read? What are you doing? You're scanning the titles. You're not looking necessarily at the author. It's something within the title that is drawing you. There's some vibration that's hitting and matching in that frequency. When you're hitting that same frequency, that's what's pulling you into it. And then of course, you could be like me and be like, oh, I just want to read every damn thing you wrote because because I think they're all amazing. I want more.
The whole thing was, like I say, and I've got so many poems, and there was different ways of putting them online. And to keep the website going, it costs some money. So unfortunately,
right,
you have to charge. But I thought the best way of doing that is not charge for, like you buy a track or you go on to Spotify or whatever.
Right.
But it was my daughter who said, well, why don't you use Patreon? I thought, well, I'll do some free ones so people can get the ones about
get an idea of it, of course.
To get out. So I've done, it's called the mystical. There's the first mystical one. Then there's a second one, the Carpet of Dreams. It has Grace and Poison and a few other. It's got the black unicorn in as well.
Oh yeah, nice.
On Patreon, they have different levels of, you can just
right.
And it's about the same price as a coffee or something. So I decided to do that way, that I can put the albums out and there'll be something coming out every week sort of thing, whether it be stories or things that mainly are, well, they're coming now, but they're also new ones as well that come through now. But to put them on there in such a format, so it's not costing for everyone all this every time, but you get the whole thing. You can play it as many times as you like. And those poems, I find myself going back to myself and listening to them.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because you get,
well, especially if you recorded them, and then, you know, because I don't know about you, but there's been many times where I'm like trying to record something and you're like, why did I say that? Like, that's not how I meant to say it. I meant to read it this way or say it that way. And then, you know, and then you're like, you delete the video, you go back, you start over, or you're like, all right, well, this can be edited. So let me just like say what I just said, but let me just like re-say it. And then I can edit it out, cut, fix, splice, whatever. So, but once it's, you know, once it's to a soundtrack and it's a nice clean read and you've got it sounding the way you want it, then it's done. You know what I mean? Like the whole presentation is there. So yeah. So anyway, I am very, very excited for you. And I know we kind of had a time set, and I know it's starting to get a bit later for you. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I know that we've given your website information. Now, when I post in the description, I'll put your links and your details in that, so you'll be able to do that. But are there any last words? And then of course, you know, I'd like to just thank everybody for joining us, for watching. I think it's been a very an intriguing conversation that's, it's hopped around from here to there. And then hopefully they will think to join us on January 1st, the new year, 1122. And right now we're looking at the time of 4 Central, and that makes it at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening in the UK time, or GMT. But we may end up pushing it, a little bit earlier. So it ends up being at 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is, 4 o'clock Eastern, and then 9 o'clock for your time. But we'll finalize that. We'll wrap it up. Anyway, we'll get it figured out so it's maybe not too late for you. And then still trying to do it. Right. And then still try to do the afternoon, still trying to do the afternoon for people who were reveling, bringing in the new year the night before.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll leave that. I could do you another poem, but maybe.
Oh, that would be absolutely beautiful to end with that. First off, I'm so appreciative and blessed for your time, and honored to know you as a friend. And then of course your readings are just magnificent. So thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to see if I can find that Grace and Poise one. Let's do that. We'll go find that. This is one about the two deer.
Oh yeah, the 2 deer. Mm-hmm.
If I can get it to load. It seems to be taking its time, but it's no, it's great to talk to you, Wendy. It's been a while, I know, because there's a lot happening, and all the things that's happening around us.
Right. I mean, you've been busy with your website, and I know I have my website out there. It's wendynapolitano.com. But just like you, it's all you can do to, spend time with the developer to go out and make changes and edits and get it the way you want it to look. And earlier this fall, it was, I think after we came back from Shasta, that I tried to get back in touch and say, okay, I want to make some changes. I want this to happen. And then I don't even know, next thing I know, it was the holidays, and we just have not caught up with one another. So the changes that I wanted to have out there they're just not there yet, but they will be, they'll be there. But I'd like to get a Patreon. I think I'm going to follow suit there.
Yeah, well, I like to say it's not officially launched yet. So you were the first,
right.
You guys are the first to know that it's out there. But yeah, it's highlandmystic.com is the website, and on there there's different sort of pull down menus, and you can have a look around. If my email address at highlandmystic.com is on there, so you can send messages to Highland if there's anything. There's crystals. There's also we do journeys around Lochness, which we will do in 2022. It's a bit difficult to do them now, and the winter's not the best time anyway.
Right.
It's not on there. I'll let you explore.
Sit out there with a camera in the middle of the winter, but
there's not hundreds of poems on there yet, but every month and every week we will put new ones on. So we're building the labyrinth, and
it's a building. Yes, it's a building of the site.
If you can join us, you can build it with us. So I'll more and more go on. So you'll get, and there'll be in Scotland we talk about not blogs, but blethering, when people are blethering. So it's going to be called
bletherings.
Blethering. And there's going to be a special one down. I think I do the crow tree, and this is a special place about crows, because I love.
Yes, you and I, we've had a conversation about the crow tree.
So the crow tree, and this is a place where you can put your troubles, and it's not yet up on the site, but we're going to put that in there so people can get access to that.
I'll be one of your early Patreons for sure.
Very welcome, Wendy. So this is called Grace and Poise, and I'll leave you with this.
Okay, thank you.
So Highland will be coming on board to do this. I'll get him to do this one. So.
Oh, wonderful! Exciting.
Grace and Poise. I see these deer dance today. Outside my window, they were at play. An early morning double surprise. Splendid feast set before my eyes. 2 elegant deer in the garden's ground. Past all windows they did bound. Up and down, danced in garden play before they up and ran away. Pure elegance in their trotting flow, head held high, and on they go. Right by me, as I stood in awe, as they begun spring's garden ball. They danced around in perfect harmony, as if spurred on by some secret symphony. A little rumble as they galloped on by again. I wasn't going to spoil their beautiful game. First bow to gently bang heads together, then run and jump by the blooming heather, ringed by April daffodils around all sides. Grace and poise between the trees did glide. Twist and turn, to touch, embrace once more. Mother Nature's jive on their dancing floor. Will you have one more dance with me? Don't mind if I do. Then we really must flee. And then that they did, me, the impromptu conductor for Rockin' Robin and the Flying Orchestra. Cock Pheasant croaked out the final song as they danced the last waltz. Then they were gone. Thank you, oh thank you, my dear Grace and Poise, my two dancing dear, your gift of purest joy. Yes, I remember the morning you came and played. Oh, I wish, how I wish you could have stayed. Highland Mystic, thank you for listening.
Just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Highland Mystic, for your beautiful contributions as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign off. I thank you all for listening. Much love.
Thank you, you too. And I'll see you in January 1.